He might not be from Krypton, but he's heads above the rest. His knowledge can't be questioned. You can put it to the test. So if you want to hear the truth and have nowhere else to go, I'll give you the solution. Just tune into his show and just kneel before Zod. Kneel before Zod. Kneel before Zod. Kneel before Zod.
And welcome back, everybody, to the most nerve-breaking, ground-shaking, but never media show, money taking, the man, the myth, the legend, the most electrifying vengeance out there, Mr. Zod. And I am here with who is becoming a really good friend of the channel here because I just enjoy the hell out of your critiques, sir, and the stuff that you put out there. I was looking forward to your review because I know you're normally a horror guy, but I saw horror elements because I think I saw this before you, and I was like, oh, I wonder if he's covering it. So I came on your stream, and you were like, yeah, I'm going to go see it. And I saw your review, and you brought up a problem you had with the ending of the film that ruined it for you. And at first, like many other people in your comments, I said, that's just nutty. Like, I listened to it, I've seen it twice now. I'll probably see it a third time. I'm like, I've listened to this and I never got that. But then I went on other streams and I talked to other people and they had the same exact theory you did. And I was like, maybe this is gaining traction. Maybe the ending that we have is more interpretation than I originally thought. And that's the beautiful thing about talking to people. You get different angles to it, and it does change the dynamic of the film. So we're here to talk full-on spoilers. This is the spoiler review with my good friend Killjoy Jake. We're going to lay it all out. We're going to talk about the ending, and then we can theory craft and see if what you predicted is true. What does that mean for the next movies? Will it be addressed? Is it a misinterpretation, or did we misinterpret what Matt Reeves set out? Because it's a very interesting conversation. So, everybody, welcome, Killjoy Jake. How are you doing here today?
I'm fantastic, man. I'm so excited to talk about Batman. I want to say I loved this film. I really did. The portrayal of Batman was one thing that I just feel like has never gotten right until now. This was like spot on Bruce Wayne, spot on Batman. I really did love a lot of things about this film. There's a few things about the Riddler's character that I addressed in my in my review that a few people disagree with, but I think there's something to be said about his motive, about what he really knows and how much he's leading on. And I think a lot of it's left up to interpretation. I don't think anything's concrete right now. And in a sequel, they might explore it one way or the other.
Wookiee Supremacy says, love this channel, but all the hype around Batman has completely killed any interest I had for this movie. I'll get around to it. Don't worry, Wookiee. We're going to spoil it, and then you could decide. And look, even if you haven't seen it and you get spoiled and you hear interesting things, and you're like, this strikes me, I got to see it for myself, then that's all right. And even if you're not with the hype, Wookiee, movies are movies. I hate when you go to a channel or a reviewer and they say, you've got to watch this. Like, you're an asshole. If you don't see this movie, you are missing the greatest thing ever. Who are you? It's like so many movies have had that said or people ridiculed. And I don't think that's a good way to promote something you like. I think it should be left up to people. If you hear stuff, Pop Culture PV said he's an enigma drifter. If you, that's my co-host, by the way, the awesome Pop Culture PV. But yeah, I mean, I think that people should be, going to see this on their own, because I think that if you have no interest in Batman, or if you have no interest in something, and then you have a bunch of people hyping it up, it kind of makes you not even give a movie a chance. You're kind of on the other side. And we're not just going to hype this movie. I mean, I gave it an 8.5. Some people call that too high. Some people have gone lower, which I think is ridiculous. I think it sits in the middle. I just personally got everything that I wanted. And that is a fair statement. 2/3 is good. And we'll talk about the third act. We'll get into all of that. I do agree with that statement. Two-thirds is almost masterpiece, like mastercraft. And then we'll get to the ending. But first, let's talk about the kind of setup, because I'm going to go all through this. We're going to break it down for you, and we'll talk about everything we liked, and then we'll get to the stuff we didn't like. So I'm going to kind of try to have some structure. So we'll lay out the characters first. We'll give our favorite characters, the ones we like, we don't like, maybe we didn't like at the ending, because I know how you feel about the Riddler. We'll get to that. But first, let's talk about Batman. People who say that Batman was Bruce Wayne in this movie did not watch the same movie we watched. He was not Bruce Wayne. I feel like even as Bruce Wayne, he was Batman. And I think that's the whole point. He hasn't built that alter ego yet, or at least that's my interpretation. Like, he is Batman all the time, and he hasn't gotten to the point where he's like, okay, I need a facade, because when you think about it, he's kind of in reverse of he kind of is Superman in a sense, right? They both wear this public mask, but the actual person is the hero. Superman is who Clark is. Clark Kent is the disguise. Batman is who Bruce is now. Bruce is his disguise to the rest of the world. So I feel like in this movie, we're at a point where he hasn't kind of made that cover yet. He's kind of just like, he wants to be full Batman 24/7. Like, he doesn't go to functions, doesn't do anything. What did you think of Bruce Wayne, and do you have any gripes with the character or how Pattinson portrayed him?
So I personally loved it, because in the past we've seen a Bruce Wayne who is established as, like the Christopher Nolan films, for example. We see Christian Bale, for the most part, play a pretty damn good Bruce Wayne. But my problem with it is he's playing this person who's supposed to be troubled and is supposed to have this horrible childhood and trying to right the wrongs of his past because of the city that he lives in. And we see him hanging out with hot girls on a boat, and he's living it up. He's got all this money. Oh, it's great. We see a much different version of especially Bruce Wayne in this movie that I felt was much more realistic and just so much more accurate to the character. He's depressed. There's Nirvana music playing throughout the film, which works really well with it. And there's that scene with the mayor where she's saying, he's like, Bruce, like, you haven't done any philanthropy work for the town. Like, the Waynes are known for that, and you've done nothing for us. And it's like, he's the only one actually getting out there solving problems, but he can't say anything about it. He earns nothing from that. And we see just a much more realistic portrayal, I feel, in this movie that I really loved. I was going into this with like, Robert Pattinson as Batman. I'm not 100% sure about that, and I'm completely sold after watching this entire movie. I really did love it. It was a lot of fun, and Batman is crazier and just more badass than ever as well, too.
And I've heard a complaint about like the emo look, and I would say that like a lot of people don't go, and PB's gonna love me for this. Watch how angry he gets in the comments. A lot of people don't go with the source material, which is that if you read the old comics, even going back to the 60s, he was more of a Batman. I know we'll get to that too. He didn't solve the Riddler problems. He felt like he didn't achieve the hero part, and we'll talk about that. And I think it's specifically designed that way. But anyways, so for me, I liked it. I love Nirvana, so I love them playing Something in the Way. That's like one of my favorite songs, and I was like, where have I heard this? And I was like, so I thought that was good. I thought the music coincided with the way that his character was structured. I am curious to see him play the facade, but it's good to establish this, because I think you needed a movie to establish how broken he is. Every Batman movie we got, you're kind of on the fence. You're like, okay, he beats the crap out of people, whatever, but he looks like he's dealing with it okay. Like no movie really dives into it except for the animated stuff. They do
Yeah.
a lot more with like
Yep.
his broken psyche. This movie is the first live action film where A, we see him detecting shit, and B, we see how damaged he is because this is only 2 years and God knows how long since he was a kid to then because he kind of looks younger. So he's I'd say he's in his 20s in the world. And so, being that 10-year-old kid, he's only had 10 years to get past his parents' death. He hasn't been able to figure out what to do to avenge them. So he takes this on. And there's also a weight. And that's what I love too, to doing this every night. You see the fatigue, the tired, the way he's always like practically falling asleep. I liked the way they were like, not only is this tough for him emotionally, but also physically, he is broken. Like that first shot when he takes his shirt off and you see all of like the scars and shit that are on him. I thought visually it was great. It was Matt Reeves is very good at establishing shit without saying anything. And I've been saying for years, I hate movies where they tell you stuff like, oh, he's been doing this they could have did that. Like he's been on the street 3 years, blah, blah, blah. And we don't see it. But Matt Reeves shows you with the way he carries himself, the way he talks, the way he engages, how awkward he is with everyone, including even Alfred. He's just a broken, damaged introvert. And I kind of like that too, because being in the service, I had some PTSD. And a lot of it, and I was talking to someone else the other day over at Ambassador Stream. We both have PTSD. And we really connected with this movie because that's exactly what it's like. You have extreme rage at times, and you also have extreme depression. And you also are in your head, and you're always questioning if you did something right or if you got too angry about something, and it sucks. And Batman has a lot of PTSD, and he's probably going to get more with all the shit that he's going to go through. So I thought it handled those subjects very well.
Oh, 100% agreed. I think, yeah, just the portrayal of Bruce Wayne in this movie is just, it's phenomenal. And I think it shows that his broken down psyche really well by showing you, not telling you. That's a big rule that I feel like a lot of movies nowadays miss out on, by directly feeding you something about the plot of the film. There's even a, is it like text messages or something? There's messages on the bat monitor at the one point talking about the adrenaline thing, and then he uses it in the third act, which is really cool. It was a little Easter egg I noticed second time around, and I totally missed that. Which, in a typical superhero movie, it would be like, oh, did you get the new adrenaline thing that we have? You should try that out sometime, Bruce. And then it's like, oh, then he uses it in the third act. Yeah, perfect setup, I guess. But this was showing you that, and there's a lot of instances of that throughout the entire film, where there's stuff that's set up at the beginning, not directly in your face, comes back later for some incredibly important and integral plot point. So it's done really well. Matt Reeves is phenomenal, absolutely knocked it out of the park with this movie, I think so.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, lovely Sherry. So glad to have you. DJH Record Hound. I didn't get a chance to say hey, but what's up? And Perp saying, Europe. That's my boy Perp. If you guys didn't see his review, he did a great review. Go check it out after this one. Friend of the Phantom Zone, but Perp also liked this movie too. So yeah, I think they handled the visual aspect of Saul and Bruce. So let's go, because we could talk about him for hours, and I kind of want to go through everyone. So let's get to. I'm gonna cherry pick my favorite one here. I hate Colin Farrell as an actor. I always have. The only time I liked him was True Detective, and what was the other film he was in? The cop one that they did a remake to. Shit, what was that show? It was an old show. It had Samuel L. Jackson in it too. That was the only time I ever liked Colin Farrell, and Phone Booth, mainly because of Kiefer Sutherland. But I think he's like a terrible actor, or he just gets bad roles. I don't know. But this movie, holy shit. The take on Penguin, and I've heard a lot of people say like they've been really happy with this. This harkens back to a lot of comics. The comics originally had Penguin depicted not as like a freak like they made him in Batman Returns, which don't get me wrong, I love what DeVito did, but uh, this is a more grounded, gritty, um, gangster Penguin with an unrecognizable Colin Farrell, whose accent I love because I love New York, and he had a very New York accent. Um, can we agree? Scene stealer, like
Yeah.
scene
Yes.
stealer of the movie, Colin Farrell. Like I enjoyed every time this man was on. Uh, I wanted more. Like he was
Yeah.
so fucking great as the Penguin. Like holy shit, I've never seen him get lost in a role like this before. You know how they say there's actors born to play a certain role? I really think this was the role he's been looking for in these superhero kind of movies because he's been in Fantastic Beasts. He was in a Daredevil, which I could kind of see where he was going to be a good villain, but this one, bam, nails it. What did you think of him? I
Oh
thought
my
he was
God.
just superb.
I mean, I wish he was the main. I wish he was the main villain of this movie. I mean, I think he knocked it out of the park. 100%. I agree. I think he stole the show in every scene he was in. When Batman is trying to catch him in that chase sequence, that's one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. That was amazing. I mean, the action sequences, the driving stuff, and the explosion, and the Batmobile going over all that. It was awesome. Cinematography was gorgeous in that scene. But then we end up getting something super funny out of it too, which is so shocking in this movie that's so dark and gritty. We get Batman and Commissioner Gordon like interrogating him and saying like, what's who's the what does this mean and all that, trying to figure out the riddle, and it's so funny. I mean, not the Riddler, the Penguin has this really funny line that they keep going back and forth with him, and he's like getting frustrated because he knows nothing about this. It's so funny. I mean, it's I think I've always appreciated humor in dark stuff because they use it very lightly in this film, like in little spots here and there, and it almost gets you to laugh out loud because it's so unexpected. It comes off as funnier even though it's kind of a smaller joke, and it's done really well in this film. It has such a wonderful balance of tone and emotions. It's a stew of different things that are just great about movies, all put into this one film, and we see that come from Colin Farrell's portrayal of the Penguin, who's doing like a mob boss version of it, which yeah, it's much more comic book accurate. I love it. I really like that he's not just Danny DeVito biting people's noses off.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, that fit for the time.
Yeah.
I think this is better in the sense of how they're moving comic book movies towards more grounded in reality, where you could actually see these people being in a real world. South Florida Drifter says Farrell only wants roles where he can smoke, and Depp takes all the good ones of those first. So yeah, Colin Farrell's probably like happy as shit. He's like, I finally got a role that I can really sink my teeth into. DJH Record Out said we used to make fun of a friend whose mom's laugh sounded exactly like Bridges Meredith's Penguin. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Meredith did a good Penguin as far as the character talking and kind of bringing it to life at that time. And I think Farrell has that down here. I would totally watch an HBO show and see his rise. I think it will be fabulous. I can't honestly, I can't wait for that show.
Yeah.
Definitely a scene stealer. I love how he calls. I love how he calls Batman sweetheart. Like that's hilarious. He's like, come on, sweetheart. He's like, I got you. I got you. Like every one of his lines I could quote. He's just so memorable, and I love that. So definitely scene stealer. Now, there was something I wanted to address with you. I don't know how you feel about this, but um, I want to kind of kill this hype because a lot of people have been insinuating this. So Catwoman, I thought Catwoman was a good character, but I felt like the chemistry between her and Batman has been overhyped. I didn't get like lovers. I got more friends or someone you're close to. Um, like a girl who's your friend. I didn't get the whole like passionate heat. Like, look, my favorite Catwoman, and this is a little bit of a hot take, but I like Michelle Pfeiffer as number one, but my number two has always been Anne Hathaway. I
Oh,
think,
okay.
yes, I think she was extremely underrated. And I think that her and Christian Bale had more chemistry in the Dark Knight Dark Knight Rises. Um, and I think she had a little bit more pizzazz. I love that scene where she like kicks the dude with her heel and traps him in the room. I think she was a lot more sassy. I don't know. Anne Hathaway nailed it for me. Zoe Kravitz was good. She had a good portrayal. She had the sass or whatever, but I don't think the romance was there. Now, am I crazy, or I just didn't feel the chemistry that you would see, like these two would just like they're just gonna make out in public. I didn't feel that. Like maybe they need another movie, but in this movie, I felt like they tried to make it work, but there wasn't anything there.
And I think at first as we are going through that and that's kind of developing and like the kiss for the first time and all that, it was almost kind of awkward, but I feel like in a way that was almost like purposeful, because like we were talking about earlier, Bruce Wayne's psyche is much more focused in this movie. It's much more understood than in the past, where he's this broken individual. He doesn't really know how to interact with humans, and we kind of see that with his romance with Catwoman, who she's really into. She's like, it's almost like she's more into him than he is into her, and he doesn't know how to express those feelings because he's really never been able to love anybody else. And I think it's done well because of that. If it was any other situation, I'd have a problem with it. But especially because of the way it ends too, is because it's like it's tragic. She wants to leave and he can't. He feels like he has to fix all the problems with the city, and we see that it's a tragic ending for a lot of reasons, and that's one of them, I think.
Perp, don't you be misspeaking about my Anne. Okay.
I like Anne Hathaway, man. Honestly, I think she kills it in that third movie.
Yeah, I think she was more of Catwoman with the way like, but this is a different Catwoman. This was before she gets established. I think Anne Hathaway played a good established Catwoman. The way she like fucked over Christian Bale like a bunch of times. I just thought that was good. It's not to say I don't like Zoe, because I think one thing that I like more about Kravitz Catwoman is her movements. The way she fights is how I pictured Catwoman should fight. She fights cat-like, like on her hands and stuff like that. If you guys don't know, I instructed martial arts, and the way she fights is how to handle bigger people who have a size and weight advantage. And I was telling PB, I hate in these movies. Like, look, I'm not sexist. No one here on this panel is. But let's be real. If you got a 300-pound dude, a $120 woman is not going to take them conventionally trying to brute them. She can't Batman them, right? So how does she have to fight? She has to get around their weight. She has to use stuff to her advantage to gain the upper hand. That's just how I've always seen that in fights, unless you have like, there's some girls I've seen who are women from like Norway that are big, and they scare me more than dudes, right? But if you don't have that solid weight to be able to stand toe to toe, you got to use your mind. And I like how they show how Catwoman used the things around her. She used the objects. She got low. She tried to take away their center of gravity. It's smart fighting. And I feel like it doesn't look ridiculous. And at the same time, it plays into the kind of character that she is, right? So I like the fighting style. I like that they show her being a thief. I thought that was cool. I think they'll dive more into that in her series. I like how she takes the fucking money and just that one scene. She's like, everybody shoot. And she looks and just grabs a bag of money. That was a very Catwoman thing. Like, I think Matt Reeves gets the character. I just didn't feel the chemistry. Like, I get what you're saying, and I get the premise. I just felt like it was lost in translation for me, and I don't think we've seen the last of her. I think they have more time to build that. I just think in this one movie, their chemistry is off to me. I know a few people will agree with me, a few people disagree with me. That once again, when we get to the ending, we'll talk about interpretations because you're gonna pull something different from watching this movie. That's one thing I do notice about this film. So let's talk about now. I'm on a different end than you are,
Yeah.
even given the ending, but the Riddler. I am a huge fan of movies like Seven and Zodiac. Seven is one of my favorite movies, and Zodiac is like a close second. Robert Downey Jr. in that, and the way that it's fucking brilliant. I love David Fincher,
Yeah.
and Matt Reeves and David Fincher are friends, which I don't think most people know, but they're buddies, and you could tell he took a lot of inspiration from Seven. Riddler is scary as fuck in the beginning of this movie. Like the opening scene when he's standing there and just watch. I think it was scarier him just uh literally standing behind this man as he's watching TV and just like watching him turn the TV up, get a phone call, and then he just brutally beats the shit out of this guy, like beats him to death with that scraper thing or whatever. Um, so what do you think of Paul Dano? And we'll get your reaction before we get to the ending. But when he first started, like the 2/3, what do you think of the Riddler and how they chose to portray him?
Well, so 2/3 of the way through, love it. Like, phenomenal. Like you were saying, that opening scene, it's almost like you're watching a Halloween movie. It's like he's Michael Myers killing somebody. And then we see him like through the phone calls and stuff later on throughout the film. And it's just like, it's this really subtle, which is a really important aspect of it. It's really subtly creepy. It's not so in your face and unbelievable where it's like this guy screaming at you like he's the Joker. You know what I mean? Like the Riddler is a much different character. And we see that through 2/3 of the film, but then suddenly when he's captured and he's unmasked, he just turns into this like 1960s villain to me. It was so over the top, and it wasn't that way at all throughout the first two acts. And we get to this interrogation room scene, and then suddenly Paul Dano just explodes into like this super over the top silly performance that just I felt didn't fit in this movie that's supposed to be an even darker, an even grittier version of Batman from the past versions. Like even darker, even grittier than the Christopher Nolan films. And I felt really didn't belong here. And the interrogation scene I can live with. That was fine. The biggest thing I had a problem with was when we actually see him in Arkham Asylum at the ending talking to the secret character, right?
Oh yeah, the secret.
Yeah, like we did all knew that. Yeah, right.
Like I said, it was like I see what you did. I did like that during the promos, during everything, there was not even a hint that they were going to do anything like that. So kudos for keeping that from marketing or even leaking somewhere. Planet Q's Queen, what's up? Planet Q's Queen is awesome. Just had to say hi. But yeah, and I agree with South Florida Drifter. They said the Riddler is a hardcore sadist, and too many times he's treated like a bad joke.
Yes.
Bad joker, like he's telling jokes. Yeah, and I think that even with even given the interrogation scene, and I do agree with you. I didn't particularly like that he went Paul Dano because spoiler, and this is going to be another hot take. I hate Paul Dano. I've never liked him. I'm sorry. I fucking hate him in every movie because he's always this whiny bitch. Like, Let There Be Blood, Prisoners. Like, he's always this whiny, bitchy little bad guy, and I hate when he goes into that mode. I would say even in that scene, I could see shades of it, which is what turned me off. But I do get what you're saying. Black Angus, you son of a bitch. If you guys don't know, another friend of mine, Black Angus. Fake news. Black Angus is a good friend of mine. But anyways, yeah. I hate that he goes into the old school Riddler towards the end. But I will say this. I'm going to play devil's advocate on the other side here. I took it as when he first started, he was very composed. But then when you get towards the ending, he was breaking. Like you could see each time he was doing these crimes, even when he was sending the messages, he was becoming more and more like frantic, skittish, more crazier as it went on until you get to the final thing. And I think the ending, what they were trying to go for was that he broke, like he's finally done.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
his psyche is shattered. He is the Riddler now. There's nothing left. And when you really think about it, he is Batman. He's exposing corrupt, scumbag people, but he's choosing to kill and get his message across in a very non-productive way, where Batman will break your bones and send you to the hospital, but he doesn't kill people. And I think that when Batman said to him, "I'm not like you, you're crazy," that's where he broke, and he was just done. That's how I took it. But I understand, because I was like, whoa, I don't know if I like this switch up. I think it's too to that side. Like, I understand the progression, and we've both seen it. Like, you see the progression, but
Yeah.
I think they switched it too quick. It was like a 180.
Yeah, and I think, like, I wholeheartedly agree. I think that's what they were going for in that scene, and there is build up to it. Like, it's done well. But the problem is, they, like, for example, let's compare this to other things from the movie. They took a lot of things from 1960s Batman that is, like, kind of silly and over the top, like his gadgets and all that. That is like, oh, the shark repellent. You know what I mean? Like, they take stuff like that, they make it darker and practical in this film, which I think is really interesting. And they took aspects from every generation of Batman, kind of threw it together in this movie and modernized it and made it darker. But with this is the one moment in the entire film where I feel like they tried to take something from the past to modernize it, and it just didn't work. And I hate, like, I kind of agree with you when I say I think it's because of Paul Dano's performance. It's not because of the writing or the directing. If it was a different actor, maybe a different story. But I just didn't care for how over the top it got. Like, I totally understand what they were going for. It's not something I'm confused by. It makes sense as to why it got there. But I feel like you didn't have to take it that far. You didn't have to take it to the point where he's going, Ave Maria, like, in your face.
Yeah, that was a little bit.
That's when it lost me. Honestly, that was when I was like, okay, no, that's too much. So
Yeah, and I said too in my review, my issue specifically is that scene and some stuff after it. I felt like if you cut that stuff out, it's a perfect movie. Like, I'm not sure how I feel about the epilogue and all of that stuff. I felt like that was where, like, they should have ended it at the Madison Square Garden scene. I think, like, that whole tacked on ending kind of feels like too much of an indulgence, and that's my one issue, because I was leaning towards 9 or 10, but, like, the ending, when you look and you get to the end of the Madison Square Garden kind of shootout, the last you're like, look at your watch, you're like, damn, there's a half hour left, like, holy shit. Like,
yeah.
I think he should have ended it, like, right there. Even if you wanted to show him lifting up a helicopter, do his thoughts, and end it right there, and it would have been perfect. Maybe edit that Dano scene, because we had a different interpretation. Now, you believe that the Riddler knows Bruce Wayne's identity.
It's just a theory. I want to point that out. It's a theory of mine that I feel like maybe the Riddler did know, not the entire time, but there's a point in the movie where I feel like he figures it out, and he doesn't tell Batman, because I feel like that would be counterintuitive for him to actually say, like, I know it's you and I'm going to expose it to everybody, because he doesn't see Batman as an adversary. He sees him as he thinks he's a vigilante as well as Batman, and he's trying to get in contact with him to essentially, like, work with him and for Batman to be a part of his plan. And that's why I feel like that maybe he might know. And the reason I think that is I actually did a whole video on this. Like, I did a whole, because, like, I had a bunch of people in the comments saying, like, what? That's insane. That doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, well, there's a few things throughout that would give you clues to suspect that. For example, Catwoman almost figures it out. There's a line that is almost is almost taken exactly from this scene and used again in the interrogation room scene between Catwoman and Batman, where she says, "You must come from a wealthy family," because that sounds like something a rich person would say. I'm paraphrasing, but she says something along those lines and kind of almost figures it out. And I think the Riddler especially is a little smarter than people are leading on. Like, yeah, he's batshit insane, but he wouldn't have been able to set up all of the things he set up if he wasn't at least a little intelligent. He knows what he's doing, and I think he would figure out the fact that there's no way someone like one of the lower class people in the city of Gotham could afford a Batman suit that can deflect bullets and drive around in the Bat car. You know what I mean? Like the Batmobile. So that was kind of my thought about it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I 100% like. I was thinking about it, and there was a comic with Batman where he goes. They were asking. I can't remember. I think it was him and Robin or Nightwing talking. And they were talking about his rogues gallery, and he says the person he fears the most was the Riddler, because he said his intelligence was on the level of him, and the only thing that holds the Riddler back is the fact of his showboating and his like stage presence. He said, but if he ever got serious about wanting to take me out, he would be the person I would fear the most. And I always thought about that, and I'm thinking about it in this movie because it's more grounded. And the Riddler is, like he says in jail, he's not very physically imposing, but he is very, very smart. And PB said, the biggest thing he hated about the movie was that Batman doesn't do anything. And he means that in a fair sense of he doesn't really stop anything. And he's right. Every step of the way, the Riddler beats him. Like, make no mistake, this is kind of like an Infinity War. He does not stop any of his plans. Like, he figures out riddles, so we see his intelligence. He puts the clues together, but even at the very end, everything the Riddler wants to do, Batman does it pretty much for him. He steps out, what's his name, Maroni for him, or Falcone. I always get to mess up. He steps out Falcone. He does not stop the seawall at all. Damn near everyone gets shot in the Square Garden. Like, he's always a step behind the Riddler. And I told him, well, this is year 2 Batman. I don't think that he said PB said except for Asian hate. He's talking about the beginning, the people who were punching the random Asian people in the face. Batman doesn't really stop anything. Like, he comes close, he gets very near. He even at the end, he doesn't put enough together to stop the explosion of the seawall or anything. In fact, he fails except for saving the mayor, the new mayor. He fails at everything else. And I said, well, I didn't have a problem with it because this is a young Batman. But PB brought up a good point. Well, how many supervillains, because that's what Riddler is, right? He's the main villain. He's not some kind of mob boss or anything. He's a villain. He's Batman's, as far as we know, first real villain. So, I mean, do you think this is appropriate, seeing that this is like the first person he's gone against? But if that person was the Joker, did he catch him? And if that's the case, then how is he not beating the Riddler? Like, this would be a second supervillain. So, how did you feel about that? Do you think that really detracts from the Batman we know, or do you take it like, well, he's young, he just started? You're gonna get shit wrong.
That was done purposefully, for sure. Like, I think that whole aspect of it was kind of the point of the whole movie, is that he makes mistakes the whole movie. Like, even little things, when he jumps off of the top of the Gotham Police Department or whatever, and he's using the cape for the first time, the wingsuit, and he doesn't stick the landing. That's a perfect example of like what this entire movie is a guy, as a normal dude, trying to make changes in the world, but not always doing it right. And I think those are my favorite kind of superhero movies because those are the most realistic. We've seen I keep talking shit about Christian Bale's Batman, but I do really like Christian Bale's Batman. It's not bad. But another problem I have with it is that everything he does it perfectly. It's always like, oh yeah, perfect plan. Easy. We see Robert Pattinson play a much more human version of Bruce Wayne here that doesn't always get it right more times than not, but continues to try to save the city that has not always been so great to him. And that's the whole point of the character, I think, is something that a lot of the other movies missed. And this movie just nails it right on the head and had that. This movie had an agenda, and I think it just nailed it with that. It wasn't supposed to, yeah, it is supposed to be the Infinity War of the Batman movies. It's not supposed to be a clean cut ending. It's supposed to leave you with more problems than there were at the very beginning of the film. And that's to show that Batman is up against an impossible task to try to help the city of Gotham, which is just a city riddled with problems. That was too good of a last line, so I'm ending it there. That's the end of my rant.
I 100% agree. I see it that way too. Like I like hero movies, not all of them. Like I would like to see the next ones where he actually does stop shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I watched Batman Year One, and then I watched this, and I realized if you watch the animated Year One and you watch this, it makes so much fucking sense. Because it's like Year One, if you guys haven't seen it, it's on HBO Max under DC. Shameless
really
plug. But if you watch it going into this movie, it makes sense to chronologically for what Matt Reeves was set up. Like Year One was basically like he fought in a ski mask and like a sweater and shit. He didn't even have the suit. And then towards the end of the movie, he gets the suit, and then it goes through Commissioner Gordon and the shit he's going through. And then you look at this, and I can see like, okay, 2 years later now, Commissioner Gordon's working with Batman. They're friends. They're trying, and think about it this way, folks. Like, and this is what I would say. It's literally probably two people in this whole city who give a shit about doing like what's actually right. Like just think about that. If we're looking at this realistically, yeah, you're right. Gordon isn't even commissioner. He's Detective Gordon. Thank you, PV. He's not even commissioner, right? So he has no power. He's a cop. He has as much power as the law allows him, which is why he's got Batman. And Batman's got all this weight on his shoulder of being, there as much as he can be. And I think Planet QC, am I being paid yet? Check is in the mail, I'm sure. I say never show, but if DC gave me a check, I don't know. Power corrupts anyways. But here's the thing. I think the thing is, when you really think about the setup of the Batman universe, it's always been universally just like two people trying to change a whole entire shitty city. And I mean, he builds up more people as he goes, but it's still always on his shoulders. And Gordon, he's the legal person who it's always on. He's the only person in like this whole fucking corrupt system legally within the bounds of laws trying to get the stuff done. And when you think about both their positions, they mirror each other because these are two people who have an unimaginable weight on their shoulders of trying to clean up a whole entire city. And I mean, not to get too political here, Killjoy, but we see the people in power now and the shit that goes on right in our world. And if a committee of people can't get shit right, imagine two people in a whole entire city trying to get stuff right. It really brings a perspective of like, yeah, this would be hard. Yeah, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fuck up. You're going to make choices and even create villains to counter what you are, because that's just it. There's only two lawful people in this whole entire city that care that much, that have a line. Everybody else doesn't.
And I think there's a part of this that's what's so great. Oh, were you even paid for the Spider-Man movie? That's fine.
No, I was not, Marvel. Send the check.
I think another thing that I really liked about this film was just the human element to Bruce Wayne, which was something that we just like. It's great to go back and watch some of those Christopher Nolan movies and to see Batman succeed and to kick ass, and it's awesome. And it's like there's something about that is entertaining and fun.
Oops.
Uh-oh.
I meant to change that. Continue. I'm sorry. There we go.
No, you're all good. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Got the Riddler on there now. Yeah. It's perfect. I totally lost my train of thought. I think it's great. Those movies are great and they're fun. And it's like there's something about that where it's like, yeah, it was awesome to see Batman win. But to see Batman struggle is a little more relatable. It's a little more you can relate to that. You see this more realistic version of a character that in the past has been portrayed so outrageously. So like the 1960s Batman, like Adam West Batman is like outrageous. It's out there. It's a bit ridiculous, but it's silly, it's fun, it's its own thing. And then you come to this Batman in modern day and it's almost like it's so much more real and it feels like you can relate it to a lot of struggles that the audience is going through in real time. But they're two different animals. There's things about this one you can really enjoy. There's things about the Christopher Nolan movies you can really enjoy. There's things about the Tim Burton movies that are really awesome that the other movies don't do. So I'd like that there's a lot of variety throughout all of Batman. There's so many different incarnations of it, and we have yet another version of the character here, even though, yeah, it is kind of just a darker, grittier version. So, but it's fun. It's good.
Yes, I do agree. Batman Returns does have the violent Christmas, and that goes with my theory, which I want to dispel with you because I hope you're not one of these people. I get into an argument with these stupid people who say Batman never kills anyone. Okay, no, he doesn't willingly kill people. Doesn't mean he doesn't kill people. He's killed a shit ton of people. Granted, it's when he has no other option, but in Batman Returns, he launched a fucking missile at someone. You can't tell me that guy lived. Like, it's played for laughs, but he definitely killed that dude. He launched a missile at a henchman. I'm pretty sure he's dead. That's why I never liked when they got so hard on Ben Affleck's take, and they're like, "Oh, he's just killing a bunch of people." It's like that's the Batman Returns arc, and Bruce is older. And yeah, if you're older, you're not going to go, "Oh, I'm going to like not kill." You're going to be like, I'm going to get shit done how I have to. Like, I've got to make sure that they're down because if they get back up, I don't know if I can put them back down. Like, yeah.
Well, like I was just saying, though, there's multiple incarnations of this character. There's multiple versions of it. But to me, at least, I feel like the most I'm someone I'm up for whatever with Bruce Wayne. Like I don't hate any version of him really. I think that every version offers something really interesting. I've just always preferred the Batman that doesn't want to kill people no matter what, because that's a little more interesting to me, because it's tougher to solve problems like that. Like I think one of my favorite Batman things ever is Under the Red Hood. I love Under the Red Hood, and that whole movie is kind of about that. It's kind of about how his morality, his moral stance on like killing people and why that's wrong. But on the other side of that, Robin or Red Hood kind of has like a point. You know what I mean? It's like if you just killed the Joker, well,
he'd be dead.
It would be over. There would be no more.
All these people would be alive. Yeah.
It's a tough thing. I don't know if I necessarily like, and that whole movie explores that argument, and it's wonderfully done. I mean, it's really one of the better Batman movies out there. I highly recommend most of the animated Batman movies, by the way. So they're so good. So most of them, most of them are so good.
Like 90% of the ones that I seen, there was a few that were all right. But yeah, it was the same thing and different universe, but Punisher and Daredevil, right? Their interactions.
It's very similar, yeah.
Yeah, the Daredevil show. My favorite episode was when they're having a philosophical debate, Punisher versus Daredevil.
Yeah.
And he says, you know what, Red? You go every night, you beat the shit out of people, you send them to the hospital, they're back on the streets. He goes, I put someone down, they're down. And it's an interesting point because it's like, yeah, you know, are you really changing the hearts and minds of these people who are criminals and that's all that they've done? Or are you just putting a band-aid? And I think people find that question more interesting than, oh, I'm just gonna like kill everyone, problem solved. Like if you look at Punisher versus any other character, like his rogue gallery is very short list because none of them ever live. But you know, that they make that more interesting by making him a soldier and losing his family and the struggle he has there. But yeah, I agree. Like there's an argument to be had with that, and that's why I think a lot of people take issue. It's not that people don't know he doesn't kill people, it's that the way it's presented. Like if you look at the Nolan film, first fucking villain, right? Ra's al Ghul. And this has always bugged me because later we say, oh, he didn't really kill Harvey Dent, he pushed him. No, he tackled him. He knew what was gonna happen. He fucking killed him. I don't care what anyone says. But anyways, with Ra's al Ghul, he says to him, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. But that's an oxymoron because if he doesn't save him, he's killing him. He had a clear opportunity to grab him and take him with him off the train and throw him into jail or whatever. And he chose to let the train run off the track and kill Ra's al Ghul. So it's like he's got a very flexible definition of not killing people.
yeah. And I like, to me, what's the most interesting about these movies, about like superhero movies and like just anything along these lines, is like that moral justification of either killing somebody or just, I can't do that. Like that's wrong. That's what's really interesting to me. And I feel like my problem with Ben Affleck as Batman was the fact that they didn't really comment on that. We just see him killing people. And it's almost been like a thing established with the character that he doesn't want to do that, or at least it's talked about, but we don't really see Ben Affleck talking about it. That's my problem. I'm fine if they want to have Batman killing people because that's interesting. That's an interesting new angle with the character, but have him justify it. Have him try to justify it. Have him have the Punisher argument, like we were just saying. Like have him talk about, like, be on the other side of the fence than he usually is. That's interesting, but I don't get that from Ben Affleck's Batman, which was my biggest problem with it. I'm totally fine. Like, sure, Batman killing people. I want to see. I'm interested to see how they do that, and I think Zack Snyder does it pretty well for the most part. But it's just not talked about enough. That's something that would be talked about too. Yeah, I don't know. That's my thing with it personally.
No, I 100% agree. Like, I've always with these Snyder Cut weirdos, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be like that because I've had so many fucking arguments with these people. Because I read the comics, I'm a big source material guy. PB knows, annoyingly so, and I hate how they. Yes, PB says the same thing. And look, I'm not on that. I love Zack Snyder. What I hate is that fan base that even if you critique his Justice League, which is kind of ironic because when these movies first came out, they shit all over them. And then like a couple years later, bring back the Snyderverse. No, the Snyderverse is fucking done. You got your Justice League movie. Be happy. Like I like where Matt Reeves is going. I like the new creative direction. I think that it's like it's more true to what the character is supposed to be. I would like that explored even more because we get a lot of that. Speaking of which, we get a lot about his feelings about killing people. How do you think they handled that? Because there is really a discussion about this, especially with Catwoman in that scene where she wants to kill the dude. And he's like, no, we don't do that. If we do that, we become them. I thought it was really well handled.
Yeah. Oh yeah. In this film, really well done. I feel like just, especially in that scene where they're gonna,
Sorry.
No, it's all good. Is it Falcone that they're holding over?
Yeah,
it's a 3-hour movie. Give me a break. But, they're holding him over the edge. Catwoman's gonna kill him, and it's like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that because that's morally wrong. And I feel like in this scene, it's done really well. The best time we've ever seen this argument done, I feel like, is once again Under the Red Hood. I could not praise that one enough. Really one of my favorite Batman movies. But we see it done really well in the Matt Reeves movie. And it's even between him and Gordon as well. There's a scene later on where they talk about it a little bit too. It's done well. It's done subtly. It's not like the main focus of the whole film, but I'm glad that they included it in there in certain scenes, because that's something that, like, once again, in the last rendition of Batman, that just wasn't even talked about. Like, that wasn't even a big thing. And it's like, that's such a big thing for Batman to discuss, to have this moral argument with other superheroes too. Like, Catwoman is portrayed as much more of, like, I mean, she's neutral, you know what I mean? But she's much more of a good guy in this, opposed to an antagonist, where she's been portrayed both ways in the past. Yeah, like neutral. I feel like is the best way to describe her. She's working for herself more than for the city or for evil. No, but I really did like that in this movie. I'm just glad that it was at least mentioned. That's my biggest thing. It's like, hey, it's there. Cool. Awesome. It's so important. And they actually did it. So yeah.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, the best part was the Gordon scene. Like, I'll give this movie one thing, and I think that this proves how good this movie is that we're talking about it. I think we're going to be discussing this for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I think when the second and third movie come out, there's going to be a look back at this, and it's either going to be like, holy shit, this started the worst franchise ever, or this is where it started the best. Now we see, like in the third movie, what it all meant. But my favorite scene was when they were walking in the building. He's like, "I don't use guns," and Gordon
yeah,
was like,
that's
you don't use guns, but I don't have armor, so I was like,
which is also a moral argument there. You know what I mean? There's also an argument to be had on both sides, and it's only touched on a little bit, but it's a good argument to be had. A good argument to be talked about with Batman and a cop. It's an interesting thing to have that discussion. I don't know. I really liked. There's a lot of themes throughout this movie too, like that are really subtle, but they're there. They're still there, and it's good that we touched on them, I think, in this film.
Okay, so let's get back to me and you. We're in the YouTube space, and we know the people. I don't like to shout out names here, but you know who you are. The people who try to find social messaging and blah, 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 bullshit. And I feel like we should address it, because everybody's going to ask what your stance is on it and stuff like that. And I'm going to say this out loud. I'm pretty sure you're going to mirror my thinking, because we think along the same lines. But I did not, except for maybe one or two throwaway lines, which I feel like add to what the story is about. I did not see any social messaging or anything obnoxious where it was in your face and like, oh my God, here we go, trying to push an agenda or whatever else. I felt like the messaging that was in here fit to what the city is, because Gotham and the Batman mythos is perfect. If there's ever a movie that's perfect to have those kind of themes in it, it's a movie like this, because you're dealing with corruption with the police, corruption with the mayors, corruption in general. That's Batman's whole thing. And there's some people who would say, oh, well, Catwoman says something about the 1%. And oh my God. Like, what are your feelings on that? Do you think people are doing what they do now and pulling bullshit for clicks, as we see on the internet? Or do you think did it annoy you? Did you pick out anything? Because I thought it fit the movie fine. It was what the movie was about.
That's a big part of this movie. I mean, to not have characters talking about that would actually be kind of weird, I feel like. And the fact, and it's only, once again, it's something done very in a subtle manner. She talks about it, but it's like that one scene and that's it. We have a lot of movies nowadays that I feel like are trying to send good messages, but they do it so just not in the right way. They try to push it, try to shove it down your throat. Every single angle they can discuss it, every single moment they can fit it into a scene, they do it, and it just doesn't come off as being as effective. I've always felt like when a message is put into a movie in a subtle manner, it is so much more effective. It is so, like Black Christmas 1974, one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And it's kind of, trust me, it relates. Trust me, it relates to this. It's a super like pro-woman, like hey, we got to stand up to toxic men kind of movie, but you wouldn't get that the first viewing. You don't get that the first time going through it.
Unlike the remake, Good God.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that film. But I love that original movie because it has those themes and they're very prevalent. If you're actually paying attention to the movie, you can't miss them. But I feel like in that remake, what they were trying to do was to shoot it into your face even more. That was a really gross way to say that, but they're trying to to push that even more into your face because I feel like it's almost like we feel like these older films that were pushing those agendas weren't loud enough with their message. But if you go back and actually watch them, it's there. It's there. There's a lot of movies like that too that have these really, really great messages, but they don't forget what they are at the end of the day. Black Christmas is a slasher flick. It does not forget to do that. It is a terrifying movie. The Batman is a superhero movie, and it does not forget to do that either. But it does have it does comment a little bit on, has some social commentary, but it's not in your face. It's done subtly, and that's the best way to do it. I think. I really think this movie does it well. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
See, when I look at that stuff, I look at it like this, and I don't know how you choose to see it, but I look at it like, okay, everything's gonna have a message. We just have to fucking accept that. Since 2018, this is the world we're in. But I say, does the message? Is the message the movie, or is the message in the movie, and the movie is the movie, right? So when you're
that's a really good way to put it. I just want to say that I've never heard it put that way, and that's actually that's really well said. Yeah.
Thank you. So for me, when I'm looking at this, they say, okay, there's social messaging in this clearly, but does it pertain to the Batman? And is this a Batman movie first and then trying to say a statement next? Like, does Matt Reeves forget he's making a Batman movie? I say no. As a matter of fact, I would say watching this movie, whether you like or hate how he choose to take the direction, and keep in mind, he's a creative. There's been how many Batman films? It's not hard to make your mark on a character so fucking established. So kudos. I mean, taking that on is a big first step. And then you got fans, and then you got theories, and then you got what people perceive in their mind. And you got to somehow round all these people up to get on board with your vision. It's not a fucking easy thing to do. And I say, when I'm watching this movie, do I feel the love and passion from him, the cast and crew, the fucking camera guy, the guy getting coffee? Is everybody passionate about what they're doing? And I would say yes. Look at all the sources he pulls from. This man has read stuff, because I could tell someone who hasn't read material versus someone who has or understands it.
Yeah.
And Matt Reeves gets it. He pulls from obscure shit. This is a man I feel has read Batman, loves Batman, and wanted to put his unique stamp on it. He got this opportunity. He's like, I'm going to give people what they want, but I want my own take. I want to give people my own vision. And I felt that very much in this movie. Like, he has a deep respect for what Batman is, for what the lore is. And I'll be honest, I feel like he pulled from a lot of things that people would have never known about if it was not, brought up in this movie. How many people know about Year One unless you're a hardcore fan? Like, how many people know about, like, Detective Batman? Shit, we haven't had a detective movie ever. So,
yeah,
I think he's bringing to the masses a Batman that they haven't yet seen. And he took a lot of chances. And do they all pay off? No. But does 90% of what he's trying to do work? I would say yes. I'd say there's that 10% where it just doesn't work. But I get it, and I see the ambition there, and I respect that. PB says, I was told by Zod, there is no superhero in Batman. How can it be a superhero movie if it doesn't have a superhero? I said, what I meant was Batman isn't. So he said, oh, he's a superhero. He's supposed to save the day. And I said, well, not really in the sense of the word superhero. Like, I consider Superman a superhero because he is unrealistically powered up. Like, he is beyond man's understanding. I consider Batman more of an everyday guy. He's a guy who wants to make a change. He's not a superhero like Captain America or any of them. He is a man who's got a little bit of money that made himself some cool shit, but he's still a man at the end of the day. He's still one of us. He still is bound by logic and human flaws.
Yeah. And this movie was, because here's the thing. If you would have just made another movie where it was this kind of tone and it's Batman kicking some super villain's butt, that's just that's just one of the Christopher Nolan movies again. This is the build up to him becoming that superhero status. Because if I put on a Batman costume right now and I go to New York City and I start beating up criminals, I'm not going to have a lot of luck. If I actually like stop being the skinny tiny person that I am and I start like I go to the gym and I start like doing that, I get some martial arts training in me. Yeah. Okay, now I have a chance, but that doesn't happen overnight. This is showing you that. This whole movie is showing you that progress, which is really interesting and so just really well done. And another thing that I just saw pop up was talking about the "I am vengeance" line, which I love how they wrap that. That's the wraparound with this film that is done so well. We see him saying that at the very beginning of Batman just trying to beat up people and trying to just take down the criminals, and then at the ending, we realize that's not the only thing Batman should be doing. He realizes that's not the only thing I should be doing. I should be actually saving people. And we see him doing that at the end. And it's just a really good portrayal of showing him learning and how to be the best kind of superhero he can be. Because he's not quite there yet.
He's not a superhero. Yeah. That's what I was trying to convey. Like,
he's not 100% superhero. You know what I mean? He's like 60% there, but he's trying to level up. You know, he's not quite 100% badass Batman. I can take down anybody yet. He's not there yet. We see a totally different side to Bruce Wayne in this movie that I just really loved it. If you're into that, if you're looking for a Batman movie where he's just kicking ass and he's badass, he's taking down the supervillain, this is not the movie for you. This is a movie showing you the much more human side of Bruce Wayne and Batman.
And Castellar Garcia, hopefully I said your first name right, says Batman should be a symbol of hope. Exactly. For me, Batman has never really been so much a superhero as more of a symbol, as more of a of a guideline to what people should be. I would say even more than Superman, but I'm named Zod, so you know who my favorite person is out of the Superman universe. I would say that Batman is more of a realistic symbol to what humanity in general is. Like for Superman to be, and I always hated this bullshit, the symbol of hope, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, sorry, no disrespect for people who like Superman. I don't fucking like him. But anyways, he says how he's a symbol of hope. I would say Batman's more of a symbol of hope because Batman is a human who makes mistakes, who's flawed. But in that, he tries to find the best in this city, which should be condemned. Like, honestly, if I was him, I'd walk the fuck away. Like, I'd be like, this city's done. Like, I've done what I could do. It's not a winnable thing. But yet he throws himself night in and night out into this symbol or trying to be this symbol of hope in a city that, one, you don't really know if it deserves it. And two, I mean, he's the lone person trying to inspire more people. And he doesn't always inspire good. Sometimes he inspires crazy, like the Riddler. Sometimes like the Joker. But he also inspires like Vicky Vale and these side characters in this story that take his lead. Even Harvey Dent before he became Two-Face. All of these people he inspired was from his one-man crusade, that one man can make a difference. So why can't I? And I think that's what more or less what he is. He's not so much a superhero as he is a realistic symbol of what humanity is in general. What humanity can be, right? Even in the darkness, right? He says that. He's like he's in the shadows, he's in the darkness, he's that beacon in the darkness. He's that thing that's in there protecting people from this overwhelming sense of fear and desperation and loss of hope, and even faith in the justice system. Because if we give up on that, then what do we really have as a society? And that's how I've always like kind of took it. I'm sorry, I got deep there I got
No, that's dude, that's great, man. That's great. That's great commentary on it. I agree. I think that's a really interesting angle to take it, man. And that's what's so good about this movie. We don't just see a Batman beating up criminals. It's so much more about the deeper stuff, the philosophical stuff. It's I don't know. I really cared for this film. It's not your typical Batman movie at all, which I can see why some were mildly disappointed. I think overwhelmingly though, it got positive reviews to my knowledge of what I've seen. I really liked it. I don't want another Batman movie that's exactly like something we've seen in the past. We got something much fresher and new with this movie that I think the portrayal of the characters so much better. It's really interesting. So I don't know. I loved it. It's a really fun film for me. It's near perfect too, I think, honestly. So
let's, speaking of which, let's get into our next section, which is we'll start with the negatives and go to the positives, because everybody's been doing positives first, and I think we've done a shit ton of positives. So let's dive deep. Let's not be shills for a second. Let's take the hard road, and we'll lay out some negatives we had with the film and what we think that they can improve upon moving forward. So some things that disappointed you. So I'm going to start with you, because I feel like I might have the same things. But what were some things you didn't vibe with, you thought weren't that great, or they could have handled better?
So this is probably one of the last things I'm gonna say, because it's 7:30. I got something else going on, but I do want to talk about this because this is an interesting angle, because I feel like so many people loved this film and thought it was like a 10 out of 10. I had just a few problems with it. It was just a few things, and everything else I was like, okay, this is really masterful, pretty impressive for a Batman film. I think that the Riddler, how he was handled towards the end was problematic, and it comes back to Paul Dano's performance that was a bit over the top. And the interrogation room scene I understand, because it's kind of like, the whole movie has been building up to this. We're seeing the Riddler have this crazy rise, and he explodes in this scene. It's a bit much for me, but I can live with it. That's understandable. When we get to the scene where he's in the Arkham Asylum, that's where I really lose it. He's running around the room out of character like a 6-year-old boy who's having a temper tantrum, and it just doesn't work for me at all. Like, you're telling me this mastermind genius criminal who's had all these things set up is running around in this super silly manner. Like, it might have worked in a Tim Burton film. That would work in a Tim Burton Batman movie. It just doesn't work here in a much darker, realistic version of what if Batman was a real guy trying to save a failing city in the modern day. It just doesn't work for me. And this is another thing that I know people just absolutely loved. I don't want another version of the Joker. We have had so many different versions of the Joker, especially in the live action movies. Move on to some other cool characters. There are so many cool Batman villains, dude. Like, let's see some more of those. Let's see some more weirder, obscure ones come into the Batman universe. And they're setting up the Joker again. Like, we're basically just going to do the Dark Knight again if they make another movie. That was my problem with that. I would rather see some other villains come into play to fight against Batman. There are a lot of really, like, Hush. Hush is such a good villain. I don't know if you know who that is, but I love that villain. Would love to see him come in. There's so many good Batman villains, and they're just using the ones that they've used in the past.
Now, from what I've heard, and this is all rumors, but the director himself has said he's thinking the next movie he wants to do Mr. Freeze, and he also wants to do the Court of Owls. I would totally be down for those, because Mr. Freeze was a terrible portrayal. I'm sorry for everyone who likes Arnold. It fucking sucked. I hate that movie. But I would like to see a more grounded, like, exploring what happened with Nora and stuff like that. And if you see the end of this movie, it reminds me a lot of Ground Zero, which sets up for Mr. Freeze. Like, in that version, Nora dies during the Riddler's plan, and Mr. Freeze goes on a rampage. That's where he also becomes Mr. Freeze, because the chamber breaks and he freezes and then, comes back. So I'd like to see that storyline. Court of Owls is awesome, because this is just rich, powerful people with assassins that come after Batman. They're like the Illuminati of the Batman world. So I'd like to see that explored. But I totally agree. I don't need another Joker. Heath did a great job. I think we should leave it at that. I don't think we need another masterclass Joker. I also like the one in Gotham, the dude who plays Joker, or I'm sorry, Jared or whatever his name is in that. Not Joker. I think he does a great not Joker. I wish they got him actually. But yeah, I think they should leave him alone. And I'm gonna start wrapping it up because I gotta cook for my beautiful woman. We're gonna eat steaks, and she's smiling because she's like, "Oh yeah, my baby's gonna." So, anyways, oh God, hopefully no one heard that. Anyways, we'll start wrapping things up. But before we go, I wanted to leave some time because there is something big that we never got to before that you're doing. And being a huge Scream fan, myself, I wanted to highlight you, and you could throw it in the chat for people. I'm going to make you a mod so they can click on it. What do you got going on that's super excited? And I'm going to go to the site, as a matter of fact, when we get off here, donate a little something. But
thank you. Thank you so much, man.
No, I respect the hell out of people like yourself who are trying to be creative, and Hollywood needs people who are willing to take risk, and that's what it was built on, independent films and things like that. So what do you got going on having to do with Scream? Super excited. Tell everybody about this and throw it in the chat for them so they can donate if they're interested. I think it's a great cause.
Thank you so much, man. So we're working on a Scream fan film that is it's a movie from the perspective of the killers this time around. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, this is a Scream movie. It's supposed to be a mystery. What the heck? If we know who the killers are, that kind of takes all the fun out of it, right, Jake? I would say no, because the killers have still got a mystery on their hands to figure out. It's just told from their perspective this time around. Something is messed up in their town. They're trying to kill all these people. They're trying to make this Stab fan film, the fictional movies in those things. It's very meta. It's a Scream movie. Come on. And they figure out something about their friend group that's pretty messed up. That's even more messed up than what they're doing, in fact. And they have to figure it out, or it could mean their lives. So it's a very interesting and different take on Scream. I'm very confident in the script. We have an amazing team of people behind this who have worked on other films beforehand. And honest to God, I am just so excited for this project. It's one of the things it could be one of the coolest things I ever do in my career. And I just really want this thing to get funded. We only need like $5,000. We're about halfway towards our goal, and we still have 18 days over on Kickstarter. If you want to support that, literally just look up Red Right Hand Kickstarter. It comes up. I'm also going to, if I can get the link real quick, I would love to throw it in the chat here. That's just going to take me a moment.
Because I'll figure out some stuff, see if I can pin it when people come to the replay. But yeah, and I'm going to put it in the description. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with these descriptions, but I'm going to look it up and put it in my description later when I go back through and re-edit this, because I am all about, while you're doing that, I'm just going to say I'm all about what you're doing. I love when there are independent creators who have a different, fresh perspective, because Hollywood tends to do everything the way it's always been done. And I respect that you guys are getting together and you're giving us a fresh new take. I will definitely be checking it out, so that I would love to see something like that, because I was like, that sounds interesting when I heard the idea. So I am definitely very much intrigued by that. I will be checking it out. And, live, I would like to ask you, if you would want to do an interview after you've done this, because I think you're going to reach your goal, and I would love to interview you guys on the process, because I've always been interested in filmmaking, what goes into it, how hard it is, and stuff like that. And I want to promote this thing out there, because I think this is crazy, that the amount of money and time that it takes, like dedication, it's hard. It's a hard thing to do. So the fact that you guys are like, making this happen, I definitely want to support that. I've been saying for years, I want, like, there's so many people like what you're doing and your group is doing, where like there's so many creative people, and Hollywood just refuses to fucking give them any notice. They give all of their attention to these established filmmakers and stuff, and they pump out the same stuff. And I think people need an alternative So I support anything that is willing to kind of detour that and go in a different direction. So I added you as a mod. So hopefully that link appears.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw it in there one more time just to make sure. Hey, there we go. Okay, yeah, that time it worked. Sweet. Yeah.
Good.
I would yeah, one more thing I'll just say about it is I would greatly appreciate any support on there. Literally just like $1. I mean, that's gonna go a long way. We're like I said, we're nearly halfway. So like if you want you're now a mod. Oh, awesome. I've never became a moderator before. This is awesome. But
no, it's definitely worth it.
yeah.
We share a lot of views, and I would love to have you back on as much as you can. I know both of us have crazy busy schedules.
Yeah.
But I would definitely like to have you back on, especially leading up to this. I want to cover this because for me, this is huge. One, as you know, we met over Scream. So I'm a huge Scream fan. You're a huge Scream fan. I'm in general excited to see your take on this. And two, I'm also excited that we have fan film from somebody who's passionate, as passionate as I am, and I'm sure other people. And I've heard your comments. People are excited about this. So guys, you don't have to, but if you can, give this man some help him reach his goal, help him get this film so we can get some some original fucking ideas. Maybe you get noticed and you inspire some change in Hollywood, and we can get some creative thoughts. It takes people like what you guys are doing to make great films, things like Seven, Zodiac Killer and stuff. I'm sure when they first pitched these, the studio was like, no way, we can't. What are you talking? And now look at them. Seven made good in the box office and it's a cult classic. Zodiac did okay in the box office, cult classic. These are the movies that define a generation. These are movies that people remember.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
And if I could be even a little part of helping you get to that goal, then I feel great about that. I think it's a good thing. I like to endorse future filmmakers. So thank you everybody for watching. As always, it was a pleasure having you on. Our final I say, go out and see the Batman, support it. Another film that is competently shot. It's worth the watch. We need more movies like this, a fresh take. Let's support these people who are giving us creative movies and not the same shit every year. And go check out Killjoy Jake's channel. He does some amazing stuff, mostly horror movies. And I definitely have to have you on when Halloween Ends comes out because I'm excited for that. So we could talk about that. And thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule. And hanging out in the fandom zone.
Of course, man. It was a blast.
All right. So thank you everybody for watching. Click that like, share, subscribe, all that YouTube shit. I will be back here on Friday to talk about random stupid world stuff. And go check out everybody else. Check out Pop Culture PB, my man in the chat. Go check out Perp Minded. Tim Talks on TikTok. Say that 5 times fast. Go check out Planet Q's Queen. She has a stream coming up. I believe we're talking about some Johnny Depp news, so go check her out. And as always, remember the only rule here in the fandom zone: kneel before Mr. Zod.